Hello, we are here at FinCon23. It is Reese from Passiv. I am joined by Logan from Tradr,
Hello.
one of the amazing brands that's been here at FinCon with us. We thought we'd get him on the show. He runs an investing app, and obviously we love investing apps, so we wanted to talk to him about his platform. Logan, how's it going?
Yeah, awesome. So we were actually featured in the startup competition yesterday. So we'll find out tomorrow if we won. So fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, we're rooting for you. For
Perfect, yeah.
For sure. It was a very impressive presentation. It's a great platform. I think that some of our users would be really interested to know what it's about and how they can use it.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically built out of personal use. What we're trying to do is save you the effort of spending that time in the morning of combing through articles and watching CNBC and trying to answer that question basically of like what's going on.
Right.
So what we do is very different from what else is out there. So typically, you would have your watch list on whatever platform you use, whether it's like Robinhood or Thinkorswim or whatever. And you would load in the companies that you care about. So whether you follow, tech stocks or whatever it is you follow, that's typically what's going to be on your watch list. We take a very different approach. So what we do at Tradr is we monitor every major global asset class and every major publicly traded security in real time.
Wow.
So that's over 7,500 securities that we're constantly monitoring across a bunch of different metrics. So asset classes, that's everything from major global indices, commodities, crypto, foreign exchange, equities, sectors, like literally everything. And what we do is we basically use percentile rankings to put data into context. Now we do that for one very important reason. So going back to kind of like why I created Tradr. So I used to do what I assume basically everybody does, is you kind of scroll around on your watch list in the morning when you're trying to figure out what's going on, and you're looking for big numbers, right? Like, okay, well, what's moving? The problem is those big numbers are not really the same apples to apples. So, like you'll look and you're like, oh, this is a big percentage change move, but they're very different across securities and across asset classes. So I'll give you a perfect example. So a 1% move for something like a Tesla is a 30th percentile move. A 1% move for something like a Coca-Cola is a 73rd percentile move. So those are not equivalent. So that's the problem, is like when you're looking at just percentage changes on a watch list, they're all totally different. So what we do is basically normalize all that data so you can compare individual securities and you can compare across asset classes. So basically what we do, we take percentile rankings and generate what we call Tradr relevant scores. So it's just a simple number from 0 to 100 telling you how meaningful any given metric is on Tradr. So we use basically three primary metrics. So it's percentage change in price, daily range, and volume. So another perfect example. So if I told you Apple traded 70 million shares today, no one knows what that means. I mean, even if you're like a super dialed in options trader trading options on Apple, you probably still don't know what that means.
Yeah.
If I tell you Apple's trading volume is in the 98th percentile, you're like, oh, okay, something's going on there today. Like I need to look into this.
Really
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically what we do for every security in real time. And then what's cool about that is once you've built kind of the infrastructure to do all these calculations in real time, you can build a lot of cool analytics on top of it. So that's kind of our secret sauce. So what we do, we create what we call market intelligence feeds. And so whatever class of securities you care about, and it can be as broad or as specific as you want. So it could be anything from like major global indices, like a global macro themed feed, or you can get really, really specific if you want to look at even like a specific industry within the S&P, like, drug manufacturers. And what we do is we basically generate these market intelligence feeds, which are in descending order of relevance. So basically you open it up and at any given time, say you're talking about, industrial stocks, you can tell at any given moment exactly what the most relevant industrial stocks are because you can see these relevance scores and it's going to tell you at any given moment, like this is exactly how meaningful this company is.
Wow.
And we do that for major indices and all kinds of stuff. So you can open it up and if you see like the S&P is like a 6, it's like, okay, nothing's happening today. Like go play golf, go cook, whatever. It doesn't matter. Read a book, who cares? If you open it up and it's like 98, you're like, oh, okay, something's happening today. Wow. So it's really, really helpful where there's a lot of cool applications. So like the main use case is just answering that question of like, what's going on? We try and kind of augment this with some AI stuff too, which is really cool. So basically like if you're in one of our market intelligence feeds, say you're going through like the S&P 500 one. So within the feed, you'll also have these like little notifications for things like if a company's going to report earnings. So what we do is like if a company reported yesterday, today, or if they're scheduled to report tomorrow, we put a little notification in there just as like a heads up. Because basically what we're trying to do is provide this kind of situational awareness where you don't get caught off guard being like, oh, I forgot NVIDIA was reporting tomorrow and I have like put options on the, NASDAQ or stuff like that. Like we want you to be fully informed all the time without having to actually do that much work.
Right.
So it's cool. You'll see these little notifications. It'll tell you like, hey, Apple's reporting earnings. After they report earnings, we're basically using AI to pull in that earnings report and then generate these like brief 120 word descriptions. So you can literally see within the feed, it'll say like AI context, you hit a button, it'll expand it and it'll give you just like the key headline numbers, like what happened in the quarter, company guidance. And it's just all right there, like literally served to you on a platter basically. So that's like one of the cool things we're doing. Another place where it's like really, really interesting to see how this technology reacts to kind of the world, in real time. It's like kind of like this expression that like financial markets are basically like the central nervous system of the global economy. You know what I mean? Like something happens anywhere in the world, it reacts immediately across markets. And so like a lot of times, especially for like retail traders, super hard to stay on top of that in real time. So I mean, there's a lot of examples, but like some of the top ones, so like a Fed meeting, okay? A big change in interest rates or like especially if it's like a surprise hike or a surprise rate cut. That's going to impact all kinds of things. Okay. So that's going to impact like treasury yields. It's going to hit rate sensitive things. So like REITs and like dividend stocks. So it's going to hit all kinds of stuff. If you're like a retail trader, especially if you're trying to stay on top of the stuff on your phone, really, really hard to see the impact of that. What Tradr does is it's monitoring literally every major publicly traded security in every major asset class. And it's telling you where that impact is hitting in real time. So it's a super powerful tool. I can give you a couple like real world examples of like how this plays out. So one is like when Russia invaded Ukraine, some of those market impacts are obvious. Okay. So like the Russian stock market fell 50% in a day. That's to be expected. You know what I mean? Like they're going to just be not embargoed. What's the word? I don't know. They're going to be like, everybody's going to close in on them. So you get like, the dollar, oil, gold, all those are obvious. What the system flagged as most relevant was soybean futures. And I'm like, okay, I don't really follow soybeans. That's kind of interesting. I looked into it. And Ukraine is responsible for 40% of the agricultural output of Europe. I'm like, oh, it makes perfect sense. I would never think to follow that. And yet Tradr flagged it immediately. So it's like you just have this like sixth sense where you're able to see everything in real time, like you have like spider vision or something. You know what I mean? It's really cool.
Well, what's interesting about that is it helps you kind of remove certain biases that you might have.
So that's
like looking at industries and be like, oh, I think I know what's important when this happens, but it might not actually be what's important. And Tradr helps you kind of like lock in on that.
So that brings up another super, super meaningful point. So one of the things I've been like very, very intentional about doing with Tradr is we're trying to kind of remove sort of what I would call like the bias and the subjectivity that you get. So, CNBC has to fill 16 hours of content in a day. All these news websites, they want traffic. So they're going to generate articles, whether there's anything meaningful or not. What we're trying to do is basically put everything through the same analytical framework where if it's not important, you're going to know it's not important. We're not trying to like sensationalize anything because we're not trying to get viewers. You know what I mean? So like you're stripping a lot of that out and you're stripping out like a lot of financial news coverage is just people throwing opinions out there. You know what I mean? Like you could go on any of these sites and there's going to be 100 recommendations, but they're never going to follow up on them. They're never going to tell you what their average, how accurate they were over time. Like we're stripping all that out. Like basically what we're doing is taking data and analytics and just giving you the context around all this data so you can make better informed decisions on your own.
And what's also kind of cool about that too is like, you used Apple as an example. Like that's one of those brands that's just, it's always on people's minds. Like, so people are always going to think about what's happening with Apple, but maybe that's not what's really relevant right now. Maybe it's something, a brand that's lesser known, you've never heard of, you've never really dealt with.
And you may notice there's a lot of times there's like derivative effects, so it may be something where like maybe Apple announces an iPhone and it's up 2%, but there may be like a chip manufacturer that's super important to the iPhone 16 that you don't know about. And all of a sudden it's at the top of the feed. Another cool thing where we're leveraging AI is just like a lot of traders only know the companies that they follow. So it's a really different dynamic when you're using Tradr because we're monitoring everything. So there are going to be a lot of times where you're in that feed and something may show up and you're like, I don't know what that is. So if you click into it and you go to the security detail page, we're using AI to generate security descriptions for everything. So if it's a publicly traded equity, you'll have like a breakdown of like how they make money and what their business model is. Even for things like publicly traded commodities, telling you like, what is this used for? Like what markets is this going to be impacted by kind of thing. So it just gives you all kinds of additional information. Another kind of thing, just like a follow up on your point too, about kind of like removing that bias. I fall victim to this. I know a ton of other people probably do too, is like you have in your mind, like what you think is going to happen. And sometimes it's really, really hard to change that. But one of the things that can change that is data. So like if you have this held, belief in your mind that this is going to happen, but the data keeps telling you like, nope, you're wrong on this. Having that actually put in front of your face is really helpful to kind of like keep your own instincts in check. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm a new user. I've come to Tradr. I'm like, I want to try. I want to use it. what's the step-by-step? I create a new account.
Yeah, so actually,
and then-
so we try to make this basically as frictionless as humanly possible because what we're doing is very, very different. So like we were chatting before we started, and we actually literally filed a patent on this because it's that different.
Yeah.
So one of the things we wanted to do is make it super, super simple for users to just get in and play around with it. So when you download Tradr for the first time from the App Store, it'll show up as Tradr Market Analytics. Basically, you download it. There'll be a quick onboarding process. We just kind of walk you through some of the things we're trying to do, like stripping out a lot of the noise around financial markets, augmenting things with AI and all that kind of stuff. After that, you're just in and you can play with it. So there's no, like, you don't have to create a login. You don't have to password. I don't need your birthday, none of that. Just get in, play with it, start getting used to it. We think you're going to like it.
Awesome. Well, we're here at FinCon23, Logan from Tradr, super cool platform. We're hoping you do really well in the startup competition.
Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes tomorrow.
And sign up, try it out. Like he said, super frictionless onboarding to just get in there and try it. And it sounds like it's really, really cool.
Yeah, we've gotten awesome feedback so far. So it's like been really, really good validation because we've been live for a couple months. So this is kind of like our first real big event.
Fantastic.
So the feedback's been awesome. It's been great.
All right. Well, we'll be paying close attention and we hope that you do too. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks.